Hello, welcome to another episode of the Japanese Shabaru podcast. Uh, Going on with more spring anime discussions. We will be starting off with To Be Hero X episode 3. So, this episode is probably one of the better ones of it. Starts off with a scene like some creature just start building a bomb and is planning it to detonate at a certain time, and then we get into the stuff with Ling slash Nice still at this point, and how they're coming up with a plan to get him into the top 10 as that was his goal. That's why he decided not to go with Moon, and and for this plan to work, they first had to basically use one of the top 10 heroes as a stepping stone and use his own nemesis to be able to dethrone him. And the nemesis of this hero was Wolf Girl, and the hero was Furman. So we get to see Ling really take that, because he didn't go with Moon. He now realized like he sacrificed a portion of himself, and now he has to make that sacrifice mean something by like becoming a top 10 hero. Otherwise, it would have made much more sense for him to go and be with Moon, the woman he liked. And we get I love the whole backstory with Furman and how he became a hero, as he was like this firefighter, and he went in there to save this girl, and instead of letting this girl get crushed, he ended up saving her by grabbing onto this rubble and standing tall and firm. And because of this girl like looked up to him and kind of told him that he could do it, that he could remain firm, that's what like triggered his power to remain standing and be unable to like fall to his knees or bend knee. It made his power just be uh never falling, always remaining tall and firm. That's his name. So just a and I love that this is really where we kind of get a more twisted idea of the hero, as because everybody's trying to go after Firm's position. Now we have somebody leaked out where Wolf Girl's lair was. So essentially, every hero that's not in the top 10 was gonna be buying to get to Wolf Girl so that they can be able to replace Furman. And when Lin gets there, he has to save this hero that gets stuck in a wall, and then because this hero, just some random hero, just a nobody, sees that Lin is there as Nice. He's just like, well, if you're here, then there's no need for me, and then turns around and tries to attack him, and Ling has to put him in his place. And due to that, Ling starts kind of like thinking a lot, and he's like, well, let me get the plans out for this layer that supposedly Wolfgirl's in. And he realized that the whole thing about all the heroes finding out what the layer was a trap. And turns out the bomb that we saw at the beginning of the episode came into play, as it was like directly above one of the statues that they built for Furman, because he was one of the fastest rising heroes, and it was pretty much a symbol of what heroes are. And after the bomb goes off, Wolf Girl makes an appearance and kind of gives Furman an ultimatum: either you let go of the statue that had fallen because of the bombs, or Wolf Girl is gonna kill a little girl that was right there. And it just like really goes to show that the reason why Wolf Girl really wanted to do this is not because out of spite or because it was his main nemesis, but it's because we find out that Wolf Girl was the girl that Furman saved when he was a firefighter. So she felt a bit responsible for being able to, well, for cursing him essentially to remain tall and firm and not being able to let go of that. And because that's the character she built for him, he lost complete freedom of his own mobility. Like, there was a point where he was saying like he couldn't even go to the bathroom, he couldn't even sleep on his own bed because he had to always be standing tall, so he had to like literally have a mattress that was like upwards to lay his to put his back on. But he was never allowed to bend the knee because Wolf Girl's first belief of him was that he was going to be able to remain tall. And there, and then we also have like through this we have Wolf Girl also try get a little backstory of Wolf Girl and how she had this drawing that she drew of him bending a knee, and all the kids really just picked on her for it because she depicted one of their heroes or one of the people they looked up to as a role model as something he could never be, or that he shouldn't ever be, that they could never see him being. And this just kind of goes along a lot with how imagination is really powerful in this series, as whatever you these people believe you to be is essentially what you will become, and what you have, and everything they feel that you can do is everything you will be able to do. It's a really dangerous slope. Even though you gain superpowers, you are actually being held back by them more than you actually realize. And of course, the one that's able to break him free is not as nice or Ling, as when the firefighter finally breaks, and the girl no longer, and everybody no longer believes that he will actually remain firm and tall. Nice is the one that like picks up the statue and is holding it up, and that essentially makes everybody start trusting Nice more, and it all due to the also his representative that was live streaming this whole event that was happening, even having people that wouldn't normally have rooted for Nice actually root for him to be able to lift up the statue and save Furman and this girl. And that boosted him straight up to the top 10 ranking. And I love that even though he finally got to the top 10 ranking, it still goes to show that as far as what a hero is, he still, you could really see that Ling uh, doesn't really feel like he's his self. So for him, the price of being a hero came with the price of losing himself, because he has to continue to pretend to be nice. And the one person that he was able to tell this to was Furman, after Furman had to leave his building, as Nice had to go in the floor 10, and Ling kind of just lets him know, listen, I'm not really nice. And Furman's just like, well, it's whatever, just be yourself. And that's like such a hard pill to swallow, considering what happened in episode 2 with how Moon was actually liking Ling, not because he looked like Nice or because he was nice. It's because Moon actually liked the person Ling, but she could never be with Ling as long as Ling wanted to be a hero, because he had to play the role of being nice. So this episode is just really, really great when it comes to like showing the superpowers and showing how almost them kryptonite they have on all the characters, and also showing how society and how people have more power and more freedom than them. Even though like a lot of the people that look up to these heroes want to be heroes themselves, when people actually are heroes, they learn of the truth of not of having to be subservient to the people's wills, and they start losing themselves and just become this version that people expect them to be. Yeah, and the episode ends with the guy, the main uh, uh villain from episode one coming back and showing that Moon is still alive. Uh, so that leaves off in a nice way of like, well, now that he's showing that Moon is alive, people are gonna think the whole thing is staged, and by doing so, Ling or Nice is gonna lose a lot of faith and a lot of trust within the people, which will diminish his rank, will diminish his superpower, and overall just like really put a damper on the momentum he was building up to this point. So, great episode. I think it's a 9 out of 10. All right. To be Hero X episode 4. So, kicking off right where episode 3 left off, you start seeing the effects of Moon being shown to the public again as essentially not being dead but actually being alive, and the agents are kind of panicking because even they don't know where Moon is. And they're seeing Nice's trust value just plummet down, and we have a thing where Ling or Nice right now wants to go and help Moon, but because the people are demanding him not to do it, he cannot physically do it on his own. Like he's being held back by the people believing he shouldn't do it, to remain calm, to not go outside, not confront this villain. And we really have like a little bit more of the agents and what role they have in this. And the agents are talking to one another and saying that they need to send somebody to deal with the villain. And apparently there's like heroes that are essentially like industry plants where they just get planted in there for certain specific jobs, and also their superpowers are essentially like fabricated within these agencies as well, and people are made to buy into them and believe that they are heroes based on what the industry or like these agents or the industry of hero society has led them to believe that they have, which was, I thought, really interesting. One of the people that we find this out through is Blankster, which is like he was supposed to be like a boxer of sorts, and even that boxing career was like almost fabricated as well. Um, Not really very interesting, but this episode we we start seeing the guy or somebody plays Link's old promo video, or like the one we saw in the beginning of episode 1, where like essentially it was that anybody can be Ling put the promo where like anybody could be a hero, and Ling kind of took that and was like, okay, well, I'm gonna listen to myself for once. I'm not gonna listen to what anybody else has to do. And so he goes up against what his fans wanted, or what Nice's fans wanted, and he finally is like, well, I'll never be able to go back to being nice again. But he's like, but I can't be a real hero if I can't even save the person that believed in me and the person that I liked. So essentially, he he goes against the wishes of everybody, against probably like against the bad odds against him as well, and he decides this is how I'm gonna start my own hero story. And they go he goes and meets the villain at the rooftop, and the villain is pretty much just overpowering him with his powers and toying around with them, trying to get him to admit that this whole thing was a facade, even he's a facade, and the fact that the relationship, because he's a facade, the relationship Nice and Moon had was a facade, and you see everybody just kind of look on as everything's being live streamed. And people are like, whoa, maybe he is the one that cried for Moon back in the wedding. And essentially, this is where Ling really takes a big character step, where he becomes his own person. He's able to win the trust of people, and he's able to be the hero he always wanted to be. As he's constantly getting himself beaten up and getting back up, people start cheering him on, cheering that cheering him and rising his trust value, and he actually becomes a hero. And I love the entire animation for this fight with Ling and this other villain. It just went kind of insane. Definitely worth checking out just for that fight animation alone. And he does overcome the villain at the end, and this does shoot him up straight past Nice and into the top 10 as well. And the name that they give him is the Commoner, because he is a commoner. He is not like a superhero. He didn't have a superhero name. He was just the average Joe that ended up gaining superpowers through his own dedication, through his own ambition, through his own uh, heart, tears, and blood, And it just, Ling proved to himself that he was right. And anybody can be a hero. And I think this is going to also pull great for the show, as if Ling is able to do it, a lot of other people are going to start trying to be heroes, which is going to create even more competition within the hero society. And it's going to be even more hectic and people are going to start realizing more of like, damn, being a hero is probably not what it's worth up to be. And this has been like the going theme in these 4 episodes of To Be Hero X, where people want to be heroes, and once they become heroes, they realize it's not what they thought it would be, and it's actually more detrimental that they become heroes, because they're not able to actually be themselves. They have to be something that either is fabricated for them, or something that, because of what they gain notoriety with or gain trust with, that's what they have to become as long as they continue to call themselves heroes. But when it's all said and done with the fight, it turns out that the moon, or what we thought was Moon, was actually just a fake. So this guy lured Ling out with using his technology to turn one of the dolls to look like Moon. Pretty pretty messed up. And then we have to wonder, like, okay, well, what's gonna happen to what happened to the actual Moon? How is she doing, right? We do find out those answers now, as we get a nice cut back to Moon, and in her own deserted island. She didn't bring her teleportation device, so she was kind of struggling mentally. You could hear it where she kind of was like, well, I kind of asked for this, But after spending so much time here, I realized that I'm not. This isn't what I asked. I thought it was gonna be. This isn't what I thought my freedom was gonna be. So for her, even though she had her own freedom, it wasn't the life she expected it to be. Even afterwards, so she didn't get her happy ending. Not because of that, but because of something that happens later on with as Ling appears to Moon uh, and he's actually Lin and brings her warp device. And I just love the scene that they have at the beach because you could. This is just like a build up of like episode 2 where now Ling can actually tell Moon, I became my own hero. Uh, I no longer have to be nice though. They are both essentially in this moment themselves and free for the moment. And that just gets stripped away as we have somebody come in at the end of the episode and just shoot a hole through Moon's head. And that shot was just so reminiscent of like Toji during the inventory hidden inventory arc in JJK, and that hurt like hell. And it was just, even though Link was finally able to get his sense of happiness, be himself, become the hero he wanted to be, he now had nobody that he wants to be a hero for, or he doesn't have the person that motivated him to become a hero in the first place after this. So very heart wrenching. The anime played it so well, left us on a huge cliffhanger as we just have Link covered in blood, and his point of view is also bloodied, and we don't really get to see a good look at the hero or the Blankster or whoever sent this person over here. And wow, 10 out of 10 episode. That's all I have on To Be Hero X. Kowloon Generic Romance, Episode 3. So, we kick off this anime with getting us another flashback of Kudo's time with Kujirai B. And we see him just work nonstop helping the elders, and Kujirai B makes a great point that Kudo is going to be very loved by the elders. And even though like Kudo gets a heat stroke from it, it's just like a perfect invitation for Kujirai B to get to invite him to her place. And this is just like really nice as we see how Kujirai B pretty much, her place had like no real resemblance of her being a girl, where there was like no stuffed animals around, nothing of that sort, just her and the essentials that she has. And then we get to learn more about why Kujirai B says that nostalgia is more like love, and pretty much essentially what that conversation led to was the fact that just like falling in love, you kind of lock up memories and you keep them locked up, and that's why it's almost like falling in love. That's the essential gist of why nostalgia to Kujirai B is love. And then we get a nice surprise visit from the doctor who essentially is like was running the clinic and now wants to open up a new clinic in Kowloon town. And in doing so, he's kind of like teasing Kujirai and Kudo, and then he does the outlandish thing where like he actually grabs Kujirai and kisses her, and that doesn't put well for Kudo, who then just like goes off and does his own thing, and And we have another moment with Kudo and Kuchirai now back there at Kuchirai's place, and you really start to notice the difference where like this new Kuchirai, while she remained in the same room with similar surroundings, like she actually has things that are more individual in more of her thing, more of her individual person, where there's a few stuffed animals here and there, and there's no more like water in the fridge that Kuchirai B kept in there overnight. And but there is watermelon, so like Kudo does grab watermelon. And we get like a nice perspective of how Kudo sees things, and it's like Kudo just kind of lets her know, like, the the rooms essentially reflect the person who lives in it. And then we go with Kuchirai and Kudo, who I do believe they do find a place for one of their friends, and Kudo's the one that like essentially finds it. So, or like gives her like the perfect place for her. So Kuchirai, because he did that for Kuchirai, she tries to give him like a nice thank you with a nice sunflower. And that's when we realized what the sunflower means. And Kuchirai did not know what it meant, but she still gave it a Kudo. And what the sunflower essentially means is that you only have eyes for them, or for one person, for the person you give those sunflowers to. But yeah, so Kudo was like now conflicted as to whether to keep it alive, or probably realizing this is what made him realize that Kujirai now has feelings for him, and he doesn't really know how to handle that well, because to him there was only one Kujirai, and this is not the Kujirai he knows. This is somebody completely new, somebody who took her place and doesn't know of the past that Kudo has with Kujirai B. So I do love that there's this sense of like uh unbelonging, where like this random person with the mask shows up, and it's very odd. And then he shows up again, but this time he's with the doctor. And pretty much we know that this doctor has taken quite an interest in Kuchirai, and even so, uh keeps asking him to investigate this new Kuchirai too, because apparently like he knows the former Kuchirai as well. And this was the same person that went missing, and it was one of Kudo's friends from the goldfish shop. So now we have him in the town, uh, for some reason. Very interesting. And then he goes and meets Kujirai, and this is where he lets her know that Kujirai B is no longer in the world. So Kujirai B is pretty much confirmed dead at this point, or necessarily, at least definitely not who Kujirai is now. So the Kujirai we have now is somebody completely new. There's no more ifs and buts about it. This is there's only one Kujirai, and the one that Kudo knows is no longer there. So in here, this is where I came to think of it kind of like the there's a whole thing in town that nobody ever leaves, that was established in like the first episode. So we now know that Kujirai, the one that was with Kujirai B, she left, or definitely is no longer there, or is dead. And because essentially the only way you can have a town not have anybody leave is to replace them. So the Kujirai we know now is has been replaced, which by somebody new. Oh, by somebody, and it's interesting because this definitely has the possibility of cloning, or just or or at this point we don't know for sure. But I I definitely do love how Kudo talked to Kujirai at the end of the episode and was like, "Listen, me and I don't like you. And I think like all your feelings, all your experiences are just illusions created here. I don't think they're real. I don't, and my love for you is not never gonna be the same, or like how I feel about just never gonna match what I felt for Kujirai. So he kind of tries to put it behind, put Kujirai in her place and make her realize that them is not happening, and essentially just really makes her to shaken up to the point where she faints, and that's how episode 3 ends. This episode, 9 out of 10. Really enjoying it. Really love how this world is building. How there's a clone possibility now being introduced in episode 3, and how it's how I want to know is how it's probably going to be tied back to generic, uh, the the generic Terra essentially, and where if the people actually leave the town, what happens? Can more than two people exist at the same time in this town, or what happens? That's how I ended my thoughts on episode 3. Calling generic romance, episode 4. As again, we're cutting back to another flashback with Kudo and Kujirai just having drinks and a nice dinner to go along with it, and we actually see how we actually see that a lot of things are getting replaced in the town. But just because it's the town is getting replaced doesn't mean that the people really like it. So with this is essentially the second Kowloon town, but because people don't like the fact that it's new, they just reverted it back to how it previously was. So essentially, in this town, no matter what, you can't escape it reverting back to how it used to be. So that essentially covers why a lot of the new stores don't really stay open as much, because they're constantly being suppressed by something, and it's this pretty much puts into perspective generic terror is probably what's replacing these new businesses, and keeping the town as it is in one shape or way. And for some reason, like afterwards, that's also probably why generic terror also has people never leave, as it always generic terror automatically replaces the people that leave with something else. But continuing with this flashback, Kudo and Kujirai actually kiss, and we have and then we cut back to the present with Kujirai actually waking up and seeing Kudo's right by her bedside, and this pretty because of what happened in the previous episode. Kudo's kind of wondering, hey, I haven't really told you about Kujirai. Uh, I'm willing to talk to you about her, but Kujirai, being who she is, realizes that, or like comes to the conclusion like I cannot hear what he has to say about Kujirai. Because, and in her mind, the reason why she cannot and does not want to hear about Kujirai is she doesn't want to have her identity be replaced. She wants to be her own person. She doesn't want to come to a realization that they were the exact same person, and that would make her own person kind of like disappear, or like not be its proper self. And and then we learned something very interesting as the doctor and the mask guy once again are talking, and they get to tell talking about clones, which in episode 3 it pretty much really solidified with this conversation that clones were a real thing. But the clones in here were imperfect to the point where they can replicate the person almost identically, but they would never be able to replicate the moles that a person has. So the fact that Kujurai actually has the moles in the right places either signifies two things once again: whether Kujurai is actually Kujurai B, but just lost her memories, or Kujurai is an advanced version of a clone. I'm willing to put my money on the fact that Kujurai is actually Kujurai B, just has like an extreme case of amnesia. And we have like the talks. Of course, they said the generic Terra was experimenting with cloning research and stuff, and we have Jamei and Kujurai kind of talking about this whole thing about like not wanting to learn whether she was a fake or not. And Jamei, her friend, pretty much lets her know, like, listen, just because you're fake doesn't mean you can't shine. And she goes on to talk about how essentially she is essentially fake because her whole aesthetic was made through prosthetic surgery, and it wasn't like a natural thing. But she also has fake diamond earrings or fake diamond jewelry, and it still shines almost like a diamond. So in that sense, it's like even fake things have their own shine to them. So even if Kujurai ends up being a fake of Kujurai B, there is still it won't take away from her own shine. But it does. But we have afterwards a small like get together between her and Kudo and the person that they helped to move. And in that they have a conversation also about like Kujurai moving from her old apartment, and basically Kujurai does not want to move from her apartment that she has now because to her this is also like the only real thing that Kujurai be left behind. So if she was to leave that apartment, it would lose the fact, or like lose the presence of Kujurai B. But just because she is living in that apartment doesn't mean she can't add to it and be make it more of her proper place. So that's why she decides to add more things to them. But Jamoy seems very adamant about her and moving to a different place. Even tries to get Kudo to tell her to move, and Kudo's like, well, if she doesn't mind it, then we shouldn't make her move. And Kudo and her just have a nice small chat afterwards, where Kudo essentially explains to her that she leaves herself too open as he gets really close and personal to her space, kind of teasing her for letting the doctor kiss her in the office and stuff. And there's a real nice ominous shot of Kudo just trying to block the generic Terra, and in doing so, like his face gets covered up, so there's like no real shine to it. And pretty much one of the things about the generic Terra he wonders is, how does it shine? And Kujurai does answer him like, it shines because there's hope in it. And then we have like the stunning revelation of why people never leave town, or like why certain people disappear randomly. And that's because they find one of these old folks, and they try to bring him back into town. And as soon as they bring him back into town, the one that was already there completely disappears. So Kowloon Town has a lot of things going for it. Generic Terra probably does away with the clones and allows the actual people to come in, but will not allow people with the same face to ever coexist in town. Very interesting stuff. And then afterwards, we have Kudo talking to Kujirai, and he pretty much Kujirai lets him know that his buddy from the goldfish shop came and told her about how Kujirai B no longer is there, and he's like, "Yeah, that's because I killed her." And episode ends. Really great episode. Another 9 out of 10 for me. I am really loving the story. Really loving how the world is developing. Learning more about generic Terra and how it probably has a play on like everything that's going on with town. How it shifts and moves the town at its will, and also the people. And 1 minute you could be there, and 1 minute you could be gone, and depending on who enters and who leaves, it decides who gets to stay in town. So like if somebody leaves, then another person has to take its place of the same kind, and it would explain why Kujirai doesn't have her memories of her past if she was replaced by this technology, but also it could be Kujirai B that's actually in there, but it's very unlikely as they do have like separate voice actors. So Kujirai B still could be outside of town, or because Kudo says he killed her, because Kudo killed her, the generic Terror replaced her with Kujirai, who is now the one that is there filling her role. Uh, but great stuff. That's all I have on it. So, the Apothecary Diaries, episode 39. Kicking off right where it left off with poor Shelling kind of breaking some ice from a eunuch who was trying to get it to Lady Lulin, who is not per se like the nicest person or like the most seemingly nice person. She definitely seems very cold-hearted. So just the fact that she's very cold-hearted, and there's no really way to replace the ice for as it was prior, they have to kind of come up with a solution to that. And Mamo kind of steps in for her friend and kind of makes like a wager, or like makes it to where like she gets to take in charge of how to use the ice and how to make use of it, and in return the lady will get like a nice icy treat, which is just like ice cream and fruits towards the end. So pretty much like I love that this episode was just Mamo kind of just showing us how to make ice cream and take the ingredients, but there was like a lot more of like attachment and a lot more dynamic that she with her and Xiaoling, and also with Shinji, and just Momo really understanding what she values in Xiao Xiaoling, and also what she values of Shinji. So she comes to a realization that at first it just seemed like she wanted somebody to talk to about the palace and try to gather information, like gather all the gossip that was going around. But with all the time that she spent with her and how close they have gotten in the past few years, she started really considering her more than just someone to use, but someone that she has an actual genuine connection to. And of course, with Chinchi, she kind of digs herself into a hole where she has to ask Shinji for permission to use the kitchen. And it just, in return, Shinji was kind of just playing aloof and pretty much letting her know, well, I'm going to let you do this, but then you're going to have to let me finish the conversation I started with you the other time. And pretty much this just means that Mamo's not going to be able to escape Shinji giving her that talk where he's been trying to talk to her about him being an actual prince and not necessarily somebody that just goes around and takes care of all the eunuchs. So, oh, and he wants her to wear the hairpin he gave her. So, those are the two requests that she has to abide by, and then she'll be fine. And we after this whole fiasco, and pretty much Mamo makes it more than likely that Xiaoling's not gonna have to face any serious uh repercussions. She then has to go with Lady Gyokuyo, and we learned about how she's doing with her whole pregnancy and how her baby is kicking downwards instead of upwards, so it kind of means that her child kind of went and flipped. So now the delivery process is going to be a lot more difficult, where to the point where Mama believes that they might have to actually cut open her stomach, as the baby's head's not going to be where it's supposed to be. And this is where they kind of start. They try to come up with a solution as to how they're gonna do it, because the doctor there's not skilled enough to pull off that operation and make sure the lady nothing happens to Lady Gyokuyo, and also not he's not necessarily like well versed in that as well. And so Mama was like, well, I learned a lot of stuff from my father, but yeah, so she pretty much makes it to where they have to hire her father. Actually puts a good word for him, that she believes that he is the best doctor that she knows, and based on how well she does with Lady Gyoko and how close they are to one another, she has complete trust in Mamo. So they pretty much make it happen to where the father is going to be allowed in and be able to perform this procedure and make it go without anything difficult. So yeah, and then of course we have at the end like the new eunuch just standing over some graves. Really neat. This episode I give it like a 8 out of 10. I really just enjoyed seeing the characters interact with one another so far this episode, and just seeing how everything's kind of tying itself together to the first season, where Momo first learned that her father was actually a doctor there, and now it's coming back around. This episode, as he has gotten the procedure done to be able to enter the palace, so there was no no difficulty there. And yeah, it just seems that because the father's going to be there, there's going to be some drama that happens later on, especially if the father meets her actual father. So I'm looking forward to more. That's it on the Apothecary Diaries. The Apothecary Diaries, episode 40. So we get this nice start to the episode with Mamo actually contemplating whether she wants to use Chinch's hairpin or not. I think for the moment she decides not to, and we start really seeing how Mamo and her father kind of are how Mamo sees her dad, essentially, right? Because now that he's finally in the rear palace, we get to see how her dad essentially runs the whole show. Um, her and her father are doing a bunch of stuff, and one of the things that the father does is write this note, and then also while her father's currently working, Mamo starts to really think and starts realizing, well, my dad probably already realized that there's a lot of young people working in the rear palace, and it's severely lacking a lot of people with experience and actually knowing how to do their job. and he sees her as Mamo sees her dad as one of the more intelligent people when it comes to being able to do good for others. But when that just because her father does good for other people, she realized like, well, if he was to take some of that and apply some of his own knowledge and his own intellect into helping himself more, he'd be way better off. But the father, her father, her dad realized that her dad doesn't really do that. So mom was kind of like, that's why I have to wonder why this note that he's writing is so good, right? Like the note is completely dictates or like writes what everybody should do and things that they'll need. All this like a bunch of procedures that used to be done way back when her father first worked at the Rear Palace. And once Momo realized that her dad used to do this way back, she was like, "Whoa, these instructions are really good. Like they could be done in a really great way, and could be used to gain a lot of knowledge." And it's like that's also a double-edged sword. So while this notice does well to others and allows others to follow specific instructions, it can also be used as a weapon. And this is how she comes to realize, well, if somebody was to take this knowledge and send it to some of the lady in waitings, maybe a lot one of the lady in waitings would actually find it useful and be able to use her own plants to poison or you know cause an abortion for one of the pregnant lady in waitings or concubines. And yeah, it just led to a lot of questions as to Mamo's brain just starts turning and turning. Like, man, who would know how to do all this? Who has and knowledge of medicine, knowledge of herbs, and nobody would suspect a damn thing about it. She starts thinking about the doctor that's in the north area, the one that treated one of her own companions, and she starts doubting her. Like maybe she's the one that was passing information around to the lady in waiting, letting them know how to use all these harmful materials and cause harm to the higher concubines. But she decides not to go through with that. Uh, Instead, just kind of tries to play it off as it's not happening. But she does realize that this is kind of like their way of getting back at them for kicking them out of the main real palace when they get older, and having them replaced with the newer lady in waitings or newer servants, whatnot. And then we have the Shinsui's book that's somehow there, and Mamo that's just gets more blames turn more wheels turning for Mamo and a lot of what's happening. How Shinsui was able to learn about all these insects, and she often visited there. So this is how a lot of the servants and workers at the real palace really get information just from this, just by staying within the facility of this old lady in there. And then we have Sure finally makes her reappearance again, which I knew was happening, and it seemed kind of odd that the new eunuch was seen as somebody that was pretty, just like Shinchi. Uh, but yeah, she definitely does not appreciate Mao Mao, and She was the one that tried to get her out of the equation from when she had her attempted assassination on Shinji. And then we have Lakan, Mamo's actual like dad or blood relative. Even he starts doing a bit of digging into what happened back at the last meeting with when Shinji took Mamao and they had the frog moment about the whole caliber gun and how there he you could really tell that he's planting seeds and playing this like mind game as to like I know you're the one responsible for it, but he doesn't really say it out loud. He's just biding his time, biding time to like really get all the evidence he needs before kill a clean checkmate on this guy. And I love that one of the things that kind of throws one of the attendants off the rails was the fact that he poured in grape juice, but he called it uh, green, or he called it red, but it was actually green. And this goes back to the episode where they went through the maze and they had the people that had color blindness could not see the color green, so they always assumed it was red. Really nice to get that back. And towards the end, we have somebody that's actually impersonating Shinji because Sure decided that she was going to kidnap Momo to get her out of the picture for whatever other ploys they have with the Rio Palace. And now Shinji has decided to go after Mamao and get her back. So, really great episode. 9 out of 10 for me. I'm thoroughly enjoying this season. I'm really enjoying how well crafted a lot of the puzzle pieces are. I feel like they've been giving breadcrumbs all throughout the season, and even in the previous season, they left some breadcrumbs that are now starting to come into play in this season as well. And I feel like at the end of this season, it's just gonna culminate into something fantastic, something like really mind blowing, and I'm excited for that. But that's all I have on the Apothecary Diaries, and that's all I'm gonna have on this session. So, if you like the anime I discuss, you wanna continue hearing me talk about anime, just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the comment section, and if you want to see my discussions or this yap along a lot earlier, you can follow me on Twitch. It'll be in the description below as well. And until next time, bye.